And I did 2 more cycles. On the third one, I didn't fully recover. So my testosterone went down. I had all those negative symptoms associated with low testosterone, and they did not go away.
What's up guys, Derek, moreplates.com. Today we're going to be reacting to a SARMs video. So this is something that is kind of piggybacking off of the recent SARMs, I guess like the Dylan McKenna video I did. A bunch of people started sending me this one too, and I just did the what SARMs cause hair loss. So I'm kind of on a hot streak right now of SARMs, so I just figured this was a pretty good video to respond to. It was SARMs can permanently shut you down, how I ended up on TRT at only 24 years old. So let's see, the video description says SARMs LGD 4033 will shut you down eventually, even with a PCT, be careful. So let's react to this guy, the bro scientist.
In this video, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm not hiding behind anything.
By the way, I have his speed on 1.25 times so we can get through it a bit quicker. So the guy's not, you know, on crack or something like that. If he ends up talking quick though, because most people can't even notice, but like when I did the Joe Aesthetics video, everyone thought he was like, everyone thought he was on like fucking speed at the time, which was pretty funny.
My pictures is like, this is how I need to look, but I said, can you help me? And then your mate goes like, I know exactly what you need.
So anyways, here we go. 1.25 times speed.
I'm sharing everything up front with you in hopes that this will help some people not make the same stupid mistakes that I've made. And boy, have I made stupid mistakes. I'm 24 years old and I'm on testosterone replacement therapy at 140 milligrams of test per week. Pretty weird for a 24-year-old to be on TRT. It didn't come organically. I made some serious mistakes that put me in this situation. Mistake number 1. 3 years ago, I did my first SARM cycle. SARMs are selective androgen receptor modulators currently in research and development for the use on cachectic patients or patients with muscle wasting diseases and disorders in an attempt to improve their quality of life through increasing bone density and increasing muscle mass without the male characterizing side effects that would normally come along with typical anabolic androgenic steroids like testosterone. SARMs can actually be easily ordered online, which is exactly what I did. I had read that they were essentially the baby steroid and had basically none of the side effects of steroids with all of the benefits. And that couldn't be further from the truth.
So I also agree, like realistically, all of the anabolic androgenic steroids that exist to date are technically SARMs, and you'll actually find in the, and it's because the definition of SARM is just so vague. It's like pretty much if you're more tissue selective than testosterone, you get deemed a SARM in many of the clinical studies. So pretty much every steroidal anabolic created at this point is classified as a SARM. You'll go look up trenbolone in the studies, steroidal SARM. A lot of these compounds are steroidal SARMs on paper. The only difference with like traditional SARMs, the way we see it, are they're non-steroidal in nature and they're meant to just essentially just agonize the AR and do pretty much nothing else, which doesn't necessarily happen in practical application. There are a few, you know, downstream satellite interactions that are a bit unexpected and are actually, you know, quite complicated to explain compared to even like how anabolic steroids work. But anyways, continue from here.
SARMs have a suppressive effect on your natural endogenous testosterone as well as your HDL or your good cholesterol, very similarly to regular anabolic androgenic steroids, except for they lack in the muscle building department in comparison to regular anabolic steroids. Funny enough, people do suggest on forums that you do not need a PCT with like tamoxifen and Clomid and HCG to get your natural testosterone working up and running again. When you use SARMs, they think that most people are young enough to bounce back on their own and their testosterone will be back up and running within a month. I did 3 cycles. How dumb is that? The reason I did 3 cycles is this. When you get onto SARMs, you fluff up and you fill with glycogen and you build more muscle tissue and you look great. And you.
So I'm assuming he kind of like glanced over it, but I'm assuming he's implying that you will not recover if you do not do a PCT, which I don't believe is accurate. You know, I think as long as whatever you're using, if you like, obviously the compound selection, duration of exposure, dosage is all going to play a massive role at the end of the day on what is the outcome. If we're talking about 10 milligrams of ostarine versus 20 milligrams of RAD 140, you know, there's going to be a massive difference in your final hormonal profile. And at the end of the day, if your gonadotropins are in range, you know, are you in a position where you like must get on a, you know, blast a SARM or something? Like, do you need to? you know, that's up for debate, but I don't think it's accurate to just say every single person, you know, needs to have a PCT. Or I don't even know if that's what he's implying. Like, I guess let's see.
You think you look great. But unfortunately for me, 4 weeks into my 8-week cycle, I started feeling like garbage. So I got off of it. And guess what? I deflated. So all that glycogen storage went away, and the muscle I had built came crashing down because my testosterone was so low. I couldn't build muscle anymore. And I didn't have the energy to go to the gym and work out as hard because my testosterone was so low. So thus began the psychological cycle of getting back onto SARMs to fluff and pump and feel good working out again. And I did 2 more cycles. And on the third one, I didn't fully recover. So my testosterone went down. I had all those negative symptoms associated with low testosterone, and they did not go away. I didn't have really erections at all. And when I did, they were really weak and soft. My mood was horrible. I already had depression. It was way, way worse after my 3rd cycle. And my anxiety was horrible as well. Like,
okay, so is it just me, or does it seem like there's no blood work yet? Like, he's talking about how he's already depressed, already had what appears to be symptoms of low T, and then he's going into a cycle, getting some progress, and then, you know, going to a suboptimal hormone profile, taking a minimal time off, and I guess he's implying he didn't do a PCT, so he, you know, had low test, and then he just got back on a SARM whilst having low test and presumably low estrogen too, which obviously is going to make you feel like absolute dog shit, and he's just like cyclically going back and forth to SARMs and back to off while simultaneously having no adequate testosterone and, importantly, estrogen in his system the entire time, exacerbating his existing, what seems to be pre-existing issues.
social anxiety was through the roof, dude. It was so bad. Never quite fully recovered from that. And so I decided, you know what, I think my testosterone is still low, and I made the second mistake that put me where I am now, which is using test boosters. And
okay, he's saying let me get that wording right.
Which is using you know what, I think my testosterone is still low. I recovered from that. And so I decided, you know what, I think my testosterone is still low.
I decided my testosterone is too low. So I haven't seen any blood work yet. I don't know if he's planning on bringing it up later or what, but it seems like everything is very anecdotal, what you're perceiving of yourself. And this is all, you know, potentially like he's in a depressed state trying to interpret what's going on with a clear mind. And, you know, obviously that's the last thing you should be doing, is trying to guess what the fuck is going on without blood work. So, you know, like I'm, you know, empathetic for this guy, and I feel bad that he went through this, but I mean, like, I don't see any kind of like, you know, biomarker tracking or anything so far.
And I made the second mistake that put me where I am now, which is using test boosters. And people think that test boosters don't do anything and they're bullshit. That's actually completely false. They do something. The problem is they work in the beginning, and then for whatever reason, we don't know why, they stop working over time. It has a paradoxical effect somewhere along the HPTA. It somewhat disconnects your brain from your testes, and your brain downregulates FSH and LH, I assume, although I didn't get blood work done. And
bro, didn't get blood work done. So like, we're making conclusive statements based on no blood work? Like, I don't know, dude. Like, yeah, like symptoms mean a lot. Like, I'm not gonna, you know, disregard symptoms at all. Like, this is, you know, if you don't feel good, you don't feel good. But I mean, like, so far I don't see very many, you know, like measures taken to kind of like optimize your situation naturally to try and like, presumably this whole like cascade of events is eventually leading to him going to get on TRT without having tried really, you know, properly assessing things first.
Your natural endogenous production slows down even more. So I took these test boosters, and I did feel better at the beginning. And I remember actually having a wet dream and going, holy cow, this stuff is working, because I haven't had a wet dream since high school. And I did feel better for a time, and then the effects went away. I didn't feel necessarily worse than I did in the beginning, but I definitely felt exactly the same. The benefits of the test boosters went away, and I felt like crap again. Then the final nail in the coffin was alcohol. So after all of that, I felt like such garbage. I turned to alcohol to help me make me feel better. And for like 6 months leading up to when I finally got help with TRT, I was drinking probably 10 to 12 beers, 10 to 13 beers a night.
Okay, so, you know, for somebody who is maybe already had pre-existing low T, for all we know, based on the fact that he was already depressed, cycling on and off of SARMs, that can obviously exacerbate things if you're not, you know, approaching your biomarker tracking very accurately and not doing any sort of post-cycle intervention whatsoever, and then hopping back on something that's suppressive. And then obviously it goes without saying that drinking every day is going to completely prevent you from recovering adequately. So I don't know, like what, this seems pretty clear, like why this is going the way it's going to me. Like, I don't know. I guess let's hear some more info.
On most nights during the week. So yeah, not good. All three of those things. SARMs, definitely a big one as far as symptoms go. And then test boosters and alcohol. All those things have been shown to have a suppressive effect on testosterone. So a bunch of stupid mistakes on my part.
Okay, so he's acknowledging like all of the, scenarios in which obviously didn't help.
I went and got tested. My total testosterone sat at 262 nanograms per deciliter. Unfortunately, I was not privy of the necessary blood work, and I did not get free T tested, nor did I get SHBG or LH or FSH. Apparently, my TRT clinic didn't know any better either because they didn't order that for my blood tests. But I got into testosterone, and because of testosterone, funny enough, I was able to get out of that cycle of drinking because I had a much better elevated mood to where when I was in that withdrawal period of alcohol, withdrawing from alcohol, the outcome wasn't so bleak. I could ride through it, get to the other side, and I was fine. So now I can enjoy alcohol in moderation, and I have no desire to binge drink whatsoever. First biggest one, SARMs. They shut you down. Anyone who says they don't shut you down is stupid. They may not shut you down the first time. They may not shut you down the 5th time you do them. But eventually, just like every bodybuilder ever, steroids and SARMs will eventually turn off your HPTA. You will not produce your endogenous testosterone anymore, and you will not bounce back after a cycle, and you will need to get onto testosterone. It's a fact. Anyone who says that it doesn't have the potential to shut you down completely is completely and utterly stupid and wrong. And I'm a prime example of one of the bodies that SARMs has left behind. You don't hear people talk about it on the SARMs subreddit. All they say is you don't need a PCT and you'll bounce back in no time. The fact is, SARMs can shut you down. I'm a prime example of that. At the very least, SARMs was a catalyst of negative symptoms associated with low T that just led to me making worse and worse decisions, and eventually is what put me onto TRT for the rest of my life.
Okay, so obviously this guy was in a rough position to begin with, and then you get on a SARM that is, suppressive. It's going to crash your SHBG too. It is something that is going to lower your testosterone levels, but it's transient. So for somebody to not give yourself a chance to recover, really, like it sounds like he basically put himself in a low T and low E normally, like notably, not normally, environment, came off, didn't recover or feel the way he wanted to, I guess, like started losing progress, went back on the SARMs, and just like cyclically kind of fucked himself. And then after that, his lifestyle went to shit, and just like, basically inhibiting himself from adequately recovering, and then not even getting blood work to assess your gonadotropins or your free test or your SHBG to see if there are residual effects of things going on, or just what's going on in general. Because, having like a 200 and something nanogram per deciliter total, it's like, yeah, that's shitty, but it's like, what did he say? He was having like 10 to 12 beers a day or something, and like presumably like not exercising properly, probably pre-existing low T2, potentially subpar lifestyle, everything conducive to crashing your shit. Like you have to understand too, like your testosterone secretion is a diurnal rhythm. It's not like you're just like constantly bleeding an adequate amount. So if you have like a night of shitty sleep, you binge drink, blah, 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 like, yeah, you can show up looking like transiently hypogonadal as fuck. And, for somebody who's chronically living this lifestyle, after coming off of a SARM cycle, jumping into heavy alcohol abuse, probably not exercising, probably not eating well, depressed, probably shitty sleep, I could, see how this would have turned out the way it did, Does that mean he didn't need TRT? I don't really know what his baseline looked like, so it's really hard to say what's going on for certain. But to me, this seems just like, almost like assigning blame, like unnecessarily. Like I understand that okay, the overall message is good because he's trying to explain that SARMs are very suppressive, and there is this, message that goes around that's basically implying that they are side effect free, non-suppressive, basically side effect free steroids, which is not the case whatsoever. I did a video on this a while ago called Are SARM Side Effect Free? I'll put up a card in the corner. And all of my video breakdowns on all the SARMs I've done in the past too, basically break down all of the side effects. And some of those are actually pretty outdated though too. Like some of my Like knowledge has been, evolved. Like honestly, I feel like every year, the previous year me, like I think is an idiot compared to like the current me. So some of the even that information is outdated and like missing pieces and shit. So as far as like that kind of stuff, but that was like even back then, people who were researching it understood at least what you were getting yourself into. So I don't know, for somebody to have dug into it and just like, I don't know, it seems kind of like haphazard the way he approached it, when he could have otherwise at least had some like baseline to fucking go off of, like that. I don't think anyone would advise against having like a baseline hormone panel, for example. Like even I don't know where he was getting his advice, but I mean, I don't think anyone would advise against that. And anyways, getting a bit off track.
Only 24 years old. I must say though, despite all this, I'm kind of glad it happened, because I had depression and anxiety before I ever had done a SARM cycle or touched a test booster or got onto TRT, and all that is pretty much gone.
Okay, so he had depression and anxiety before taking SARMs. It's alleviated now on TRT. Like, connect the pieces in the puzzle, dude. Like, it seems like there was something wrong to begin with that should have been addressed prior to exacerbating the issue. So I think this is more of SARMs revealing an underlying problem rather than the SARMs inherently being the one to blame. It's like, yeah, if you take a selective androgen receptor modulator, a steroidal SARM, a anabolic steroid, a whatever, you are going to suppress yourself. Like, that is an expected outcome. So, that's your own pros and cons that you got to weigh out, but it's like, I think at this point, the majority of people who have like, aren't listening to like the most simple-minded of the simple-minded people like marketing this stuff, who are like blatantly lying about it, are, like everyone knows at this point that they're suppressive, at least in my opinion. Or, maybe they don't. Maybe I'm being far too generous to say that. But I mean, this is like, to me, just sort of highlights a lack of proper attention to detail and care for your own personal health, So if anything, this is a good example of what not to do during a cycle, which is, get your baseline panel. See if you're even in a place where getting on exogenous anything would be a risk worth undertaking for your performance enhancing goals. Decide if a SARM is the way to go for you based on what you're like. Why you're using a SARM? Would you not just jump straight to gear? Like, what is the point of using a SARM? Do you have a very particular reason for using it? Are you a girl? Are you somebody who is otherwise extremely prone to androgenic side effects? Are you somebody who is afraid of injecting shit? Like, what is the reason here? And weigh out exactly what you're getting yourself into and what to expect, and prepare yourself accordingly. And, at least have like a SARM on hand, like get some, like, I know if it were me and I was like, first of all, I wouldn't do SARMs only anyways, but if I were, like, I would definitely have at least like some N-clomiphene and something to inhibit gyno if it were to present itself on hand at minimum. So I don't know, like, it just seems like this guy didn't plan properly, didn't get any blood work, wasn't prepared for post-cycle practices. Yeah, it's just unfortunate. Like, but at the end of the day, it sounds like the outcome for him was overall net positive, where his issue might have just revealed his issue. Maybe he would have gone on for years without addressing it. But I guess, again, circling back to why were you depressed and anxious and low T to begin with? Was there some sort of lifestyle factor involved in that probably led to that to begin with? That's a totally different conversation than like the SARMs thing, So this probably just led this guy to figuring out his issues quicker than he would have otherwise, to be honest. So it sounds like he's interpreting it as a positive.
Like, it's amazing. I don't know where my testosterone sat beforehand. Perhaps it was already relatively low. I don't know. But I feel way, way better. My outlook on life is way less bleak. My depression is like 10% of what it was, 5% of what it was. Same with my anxiety. And I feel like I can enjoy life like a normal person with a normal amount of energy without having to nap every day and feel like garbage and rely on alcohol to make me feel better. And it makes me wonder, is this what everyone's been feeling this entire time? Because I knew when I watched people like go through life, I was like, there's something they have that I don't. There's something about the way they interact with other people and the way they go through their own life, with all the tasks they accomplish and the things they're able to do with vigor and energy. I was like, I don't have that. There's something missing. I thought it was my personality. And to some degree, possibly it was. But testosterone made me feel like, okay, now I'm on the same page with these people. I'm on a level playing field. I can get a freaking job done, and I have the energy to do things that I enjoy again. So I have testosterone to thank for that. And despite all the stupid, dumb, naive mistakes I've made, I'm glad where I ended up. So please be careful when it comes to SARMs or steroids or test boosters even. Do your research, because these things can possibly hurt you. And it's a difficult situation when you see people who don't know any better and they get themselves into months and months of just misery from low testosterone, and they don't even know what's going on. That's a sad picture, and that's where I was, and I know just how bad it can be and just how bleak life can get. So please be careful. Thank you for watching. I want to be
Okay, so yeah, so it sounds like, you know, I think we've all pieced together the puzzle here for him, or he sounds like he pieced it together as he was talking, to be honest. So, you know, what's the overall takeaway from the video? I guess in a general sense, SARMs will suppress your natural testosterone, but you have to understand too what is going on too. There is SHBG involved, which is often completely overlooked when it comes to these oral agents. And when you're lowering it significantly, a lot of people don't realize they're like pushing their SHBG into the single digits when they're taking monotherapy SARM cycles with heavily suppressive compounds like RAD140, S23, etc., crashing their estrogen to nil while simultaneously dropping their SHBG into the single digits, and consequently resulting in this, you know, very low T environment that is recoverable from, though, if your baseline function was adequate to begin with. And it's just a matter of what is the half-life of the compound in question once it's out of your system and it's no longer suppressing you. How long is it going to take for your body to synthesize these binding proteins again? In addition to that, being regulated in the synthesis and actual transportation of these things, being regulated by adequate estrogen levels, which you also don't have right now because you just crashed them with the SARM in question. If you're using a heavily, you know, suppressive one, or your dosage used, or your exposure duration was like excessive or whatever, you know, how are you going to get your testosterone and estrogen back to baseline as quick as possible? You know, do you have a good SERM on hand like enclomiphene that you can deploy to kind of assist in that process? Has the SARM worked its way out of your system? Are you using RAD140 that has a 60-hour half-life or whatever it is, and you're like highly underestimating the clearance time of it, and you're getting your blood work done like a week later and thinking that your low T means that you need TRT, when in reality, you just need to wait for the thing to fucking clear and your LH and FSH to get to where they should be, and things would have corrected themselves in short order. You know, there's a lot of things that I feel like go overlooked with this stuff that need to be taken into account. Like when you're planning whatever, like a cycle of anabolic steroids of whatever, look at the pharmacokinetic profile of it and understand how long it's going to take to get out of your system. It takes 5 half-lives for a compound to get out enough for it not to be suppressing you to a point where it is absolutely, you know, impossible for your body to even kind of like kickstart and get back going again. So if you get blood work and, you know, things are still looking shitty, it's like, it doesn't necessarily mean you are screwed for life and you need TRT. Rather, it may just be that, did you even plan for the pharmacokinetics of whatever you're using? Like, I know some people, they'll take like EQ and then they get their, they start PCT 2 weeks later after their last shot. And I'm like, do you understand what the half-life of undeslinate is? It's fucking massive. So, you know, just understand what's going on. Understand the binding protein issue too, because the negative feedback and kind of the tie-in with the HPTA with these binding proteins, with your estrogen levels and testosterone, is often overlooked completely. The turnaround time on all this stuff being manufactured again, and then for your HPTA and gonadotropins to shoot down and kind of get things going and get everything back up to homeostasis. It is a process, and your body needs time to get there, and it needs adequate planning on your part, and it depends on the compound selection, the dosage, the duration of exposure, etc. But these are all things that you should plan for before you deploy any of these agents. And as far as like actually using like SARMs on their own and how problematic that could be, I've touched on this before actually. I'm not going to go in a deep dive because this video is going to be pushing 30 minutes, but I did a video about how, low E on estrogen during a SARM cycle, why it could be problematic, why it is problematic, and when it sort of makes sense to intervene, or to, maybe a SARM cycle doesn't even make sense for your goals. For a lot of people, they just, are overlooking something that may otherwise be a healthier alternative through actual synthetic anabolics, simply because of ease of administration and how easy it is to obtain the compound when, you know, you may be better off just using straight test. You know, that's often the case with many individuals. So, but again, it comes down to your goals and your actual scenario you put yourself into. Like, there's a very specific reason I experiment with SARMs myself and have many times in the past. And it is certainly not the same reason for a lot of people who are seeking performance enhancement or, you know, other practices. And you have to understand, again, like, why you're using it. Is it just because somebody told you it's side effect free steroids, or is there actual like outcome you're seeking that actually justifies the intervention with some experimental compound or something that is almost approved for human use but isn't quite? What the fuck are you doing, you know? And like, do you know what to plan for given the lack of research on whatever you're using? Like, some of these compounds, you don't even know the half-life when you're going into it. So obviously, you know, a lot of planning has to go into this, and it's not as simple as just like take the shit and you stop and then all of a sudden just like you're fine like 2 seconds later. It doesn't work like that. So anyways, take from that what you will. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplates.com. Follow me on Instagram at moreplates_moredates. Facebook, Snapchat, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. My TRT clinic, you know, coincidentally, you can check that out if you're interested. But do not go to it if you are done a SARM cycle and haven't assessed your blood work properly and think you need TRT. If you want to get a blood panel done and get somebody to actually interpret it for you, who's not going to just you know, haphazardly throw you on TRT without actually checking your gonadotropins and your free T and your SHBG and kind of assessing what your overall hormonal state is and why you're there to begin with, you know, check it out for the lab portion, but do not just haphazardly jump on TRT if you do not need it, or if you haven't determined if it's the best, you know, if it's what you actually need for your current situation. And anything else I'm associated with, it's all in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.